I'll start off just thanking a few of the guys, obviously, that were released today, just all their hard work and effort. Obviously, these are tough decisions that are made throughout the process, and we got obviously some few more that we got to do that are going to be tough. But I want to thank those guys for all their hard work and effort. And then also just my condolences for Joe D., the O-line coach in Baltimore. I had a chance to work with him for a few years in San Diego. Just a tremendous human being, heart of gold. I mean, they're probably not, as far as a person, as good as it gets. And just so his condolences to him and his family. I mean, it's a tough deal, but a lot of respect for him and what he's done in this league and really more as a human being.
Is the fact that there's so many roster moves that have to be made, another 24, you can't meet with everybody, right?
Yeah, I know. I try to, for sure. I mean, most every single guy, I try to, without a doubt. Some of those conversations are longer than others, but I try to, every single one of them, for sure.
Just
keep fighting, you know what I mean? You got a dream, go chase it, you know what I mean? And keep going, because some of these guys that get released, you know how it is. You see the tape, there's 31 other teams watching it, they get picked up and go have careers, somewhere else. Sometimes you bring these guys back, they did enough, and they're still out there. But just keep working, keep chasing your dream.
Shane, what's Josh Downs' status, and could he be available for week 1?
I don't want to put a time. I'd love to have him for week 1. I mean, that's the hope for week 1, but he's progressing really well.
Shane, what's the hardest part about cut down time for you now as a head coach?
I think, the relationships you build with these guys, that's what's hard about this business. Probably the hardest part about it is releasing guys because they put so much into it, and you got to cut this thing down. That's the nature of the beast, nature of the business. But that's the hardest part is really the relationships you build. But you try to keep those relationships going. I've been a part of teams where you cut guys, and I still talk to guys and that are on other teams, and you see them when you play each other, and you still have those relationships. And that's what's so special about this league is the relationships you build with these guys.
Does the down situation affect roster cuts at all, do you think, or?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think we have a good idea of what's going on there.
Is Ronnie Harrison a candidate to be back?
We'll see. I mean, he's a talented player. That was a tough one too. Good player, and it was just a tough decision that was made. But talented player.
Does the dynamic kickoff change roster construction in any appreciable way?
It's a good question. Yes and no. I think we're going to find out the first couple weeks of how this thing's going to play out, what teams' philosophy is on it, whether kicking it out or letting teams return it or doing different types of kicks. I mean, there's going to be a whole different thing. It's new for everybody, so I think we're going to find out in the first couple weeks really what it's going to look like.
One thing about Anthony from Thursday night, obviously we talked about the plays that were negative plays, but on the first drive, you had a lot of RPOs in there, and his decisive decision-making. How much growth have you seen in that area since last year? Because, you look very decisive about that.
Yeah, it's been huge. Like I said, the growth, we just want to see growth week in and week out, with him and all players, you know what I mean? But he did a hell of a job on that first drive. And then, like I said, there was great, tape to teach off those next couple of drives. That miscommunication we talked about as coaching staff, that's on us too. That's on us. We got to teach that better, you know what I mean? And so we don't have those communication deals. Again, I'm super excited for the season. I'm super excited for him too.
Talk a lot about his legs, but what about his feet, footwork, things like that? Have you seen him grow and get better at? That's awesome.
I think he's got tremendous feet, personally. He's super quick. He's obviously very twitchy in the pocket, can move, can get out of things, but his footwork, when he takes his quick 5-step drop, how fast he gets back there, how the ball jumps off his hands. The feet and your eyes all tying together. But he's made strides in that too, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
Anthony had that, like you mentioned, that miscommunication with Granson, but the next drive he hits that throw to Granson, kind of that later throw in the middle. So what have you seen just from his ability to kind of move on from when there are mistakes and just get to the next point?
That was a big-time play. For me, pre-snap, the look they had, it was kind of a buzz safety look, and I was like, shoot, that's going to be a tight window, and he's got the arm strength to make those throws. That's what's special, and he needled that thing right through there to Granson. That was a big-time throw by him for sure.
Any update on Juju and his nose?
He's progressing. Hopefully next week he'll be ready to go next week.
Shane, when you first got here, somebody asked about your offensive philosophy, and you said you throw to score, run to win.
Yeah.
Is that 55-40 at the end of a season? What, in your mind, if everything goes well, what is a balance in your mind?
I'll talk to you off the record about it, but I do. Yeah, no, but I do believe that. You throw to score points and you run to win in this league. I do. But again, that changes throughout a game. You know what I mean? You might start throwing it and it ain't going, and all of a sudden JT's rolling and AR's on the ground rolling, and you start running it, and it's a balance maybe some games. So, but you always have an idea of what you want it to look like week in and week out. But yeah, I truly believe you throw to score and run to win in this league.
Has that approach changed when you see the makeup of the team? And boy, you've got Taylor who can take over a game, and you're going to use AR a lot. Does that change or not?
I think it's week to week. I think it's week to week on how the game's going. You know what I mean? The philosophy there can change week to week and how it's going. I mean, like I've said, I've been in those games where I'm like, man, we can throw it all over the ballpark, and next thing you know, there's 45 carries on the ground and you rush for 300 yards. I've been a part of those in Philly that I've been into. So that's just how the game goes sometimes.
How do you balance the preseason games, like getting in work that will carry over to the regular season, but also not showing more than you maybe want to?
Yeah, I think, preseason with every team, right? Defense, offense. I mean, it is. You're not showing a lot of stuff. You're keeping it simple for the guys. You want those guys to just go out there and play fast. But again, you do want to get the work in. You know what I mean? It comes down to technique and fundamentals really in the preseason, and playing the scheme. Not all the crazy scheme stuff, but just the basic scheme, and go out and see guys execute.
What do you think about the camp that Gonzalez and Bortolini and Dalton Tucker had?
Yeah, big time camps for those guys. Obviously, getting those guys, Bort and Gonzalez in the draft, I think they're going to have bright futures, and Tucker had a hell of a camp for us as well too. So those guys did a nice job.
Anthony obviously does really well with the hurry-up stuff, but you obviously can't do it all the time. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of marry some of that stuff he does really well with that into the rest of the game plan where you kind of have to be more traditional?
I think there's a time and a place for that stuff. I think you always got to keep that element in the game plan, obviously. But there is times, obviously, when you got to lead in the fourth quarter, you're not going to do that type of stuff. But there's always a time and a place for that type of offense, for sure.
Are some quarterbacks better than others in that scenario, and why?
It's a good question. I mean, some guys operate it really well. Some guys like to huddle up and see the picture. Some guys like to play fast. You got to, as a coach, you got to feel your player out on what he likes and build that offense around what he does well. And that's what we do.
You mentioned Juju might be okay to go next week. Trey Sermon?
Yeah, same thing. Hopefully next week. Yeah.
Coach, next week's going to be all about Houston, but this week, once you get the roster set, what are you trying to balance this week in terms of work and focus?
That's a good question. I mean, coaches-wise, obviously, we got 48 hours to make final cuts, but we're starting to peek at Houston right now, get early eyes on those guys, starting to game plan a little bit, so when we go out there Wednesday, Thursday, we have some stuff in that we're going to like for those guys and get that work in Wednesday and Thursday, obviously going into next week.
Because I know you mentioned at the beginning, but what did you learn from Coach Joe in San Diego?
He was just so, I go back to the person that he was. He was a heart of gold. He treated everyone the right way, but he was also really firm with his players. And he had a high level of accountability with those guys that all those players respected. And there wasn't a day that he came into work where he was down. Like, he was excited to be there. You love being around him because he just wanted to work and get those guys better. And that's what the players respected about him. That's what I respect about him, being in those meetings every day. Again, just a heart of gold. The guy was a tremendous human being, and it's tough, obviously, to lose a guy like that.